Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
For our final day, can you believe it? It's gone so quickly. And it's a great pleasure, I think, this morning to have two speakers to begin. Dr. Reza Shah-Kazemi and Archimandrite Nicodemus Anagnostopoulos, but there's no sight of him as yet. So let's hope and pray that he will appear at some point. If not, we'll have more time for discussion of your paper, Reza. Dr. Reza Shah-Kazemi is an author of works in comparative religion and Islamic studies. He is a senior research associate at the Institute of Ismaili Studies in London. And he's asked if he could begin his presentation by playing a chant associated with Ibn Arabi, who we talked about yesterday. So we'll begin with that song.
So, I'll immediately begin by just translating that for you all. I'll be doing that. Still fast, still running that. This is, as some of you may know, one of the most famous of all of Ibn Arabi's poems from his collection called Tarjuman al-Ashwaq, the translator of desires. And it reads as follows in English. My heart has become capable of every form. It is a pasture for gazelles and a convent for Christian monks, and a temple for idols, and the pilgrim's Qa'bah, and the tables of the Toraat, and the book of the Qur'an. I follow the religion of love. Whatever way love's camels go, love is my religion, love is my faith. So this is, as I say, arguably one of the most famous and influential of Ibn Arabi's poems, certainly in the Western world. And it expresses the principle of universality proper to the vision of the heart of the true Sufi, which Jalaluddin Rumi has, of course, made also very famous in his poems that have been translated by various people in America, and for a long time he was on the best-selling list of the New York Times. Rumi puts it slightly differently in a few places. In the Masnavi, he says that ملت عشق از همه دینها جداست. عاشقان را مذهب و ملت خداست. The religion, the religious community, the millah, the religious community of love is separate from all religions. For the true lovers, religious community and religious creed, millat, the mazhab, khudast, is God. So the focus for the Sufi is on the reality, the heart, the haqiqah, the spiritual reality of the Absolute. And that spiritual reality is deemed to be infinite love. And not just deemed, but experienced, realized, made real as infinite love. And I want to start my presentation in about 10 minutes from our formal presentation with the slides. But what I want to do before going into the slides is, in the spirit of this dialogue of the heart that Sarah Spiri began, well, for us, Abdu and I only came, of course, on Tuesday. So for us, we were really led into this conference by the idea of the dialogue of the heart, the duties of the heart of Bahya ibn Maquda, the great Spanish mystic of the Judaic Kabbalic tradition. So, in the spirit of continuing that dialogue, I just wanted to respond to one or two things that have been expressed. And I suppose particularly I'd like to start with what Michael, Kiran, I'm pointing behind you because I take it that he's with us there. He is?
Yeah.
When Michael spoke, is he waving?
Yeah, he is. He just did that.
Good. Well, thank you, Michael. Well, I really wanted to thank you very much for reminding us of the importance of Surah number 5 in the Quran when it comes to religious dialogue, and also it answers the question, why is there a diversity of religions? If there's only one God, why are there so many religions? Why? Whence this diversity? And Michael gave us a sort of summary of verse 48 in what he gave us on the screen up there. It's Surah number 5, which is very important in many respects, and for dialogue extremely important. The Surah number 5 is entitled Al-Ma'idah, which means the table spread with food, and it refers to the Last Supper. And there are a lot of the verses are concerned with Jesus and Mary, and concerned with what in Christianity is called the Last Supper, and with the Eucharist. And in fact, it's very important from the point of view of the Muslims' belief in the sacramental efficacy of the Eucharist to the end of time. Because the supplication that Jesus makes is that he asks God to cause to descend a feast, a food table from the heavens that will be a spiritual festival for the first of us, an Eid literally, for the first of us, meaning himself and his disciples, and the last of us. So any Muslim who believes that the Quran is the revealed word of God should believe also in the sacramental efficacy, a salvific efficacy of the central Eucharistic rite of Christianity, the bread and the wine. Now in this surah we have verse number 48, of which Michael gave us a summary. Part of it was the translation of word for word, the rest of it was a kind of summary of that verse, which is quite a long one, and I'm sorry I didn't bring my laptop and I didn't have a chance to type this out, so I can't put it up there. But I can just give you a closer verbatim translation of that verse. It begins, for each of you, referring to religious communities, لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ. For each of you, we have established from yourselves, extremely important from the esoteric point of view, the batin that Sarah was talking about with Bahya. It's all about going into the heart. The heart is the batin, which means literally the inwardly hidden. Therefore we can translate it as the esoteric, which in Greek means the same thing. The inward as opposed to the exoteric, which is the zahir, which is the outward, the apparent. Zahir also means, by the way, the backbone of something, and the batin means the belly. So it's almost like we're referring to an animal that's walking, and that its belly is hidden from view, but its backbone is visible. So the zahir is the outward, the apparent, the extra, but it's also the backbone. It's something that's very strong and necessary. The batin is what's inward, mysterious, hidden, and related to this idea of the belly, what's within, what's hidden. Which is also related, by the way, to the word rahma, which is related to rahim, which is the womb of the mother, which is going to figure prominently, I hope, in the slides that I'm going to share with you. So, the verse says, for each of you communities, لَكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ. For each of you we have established from yourselves, meaning from something deep within yourselves, we have given you these religions. لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. Shir'ah is where we get the word sharia from, an outward law, and minhaj, a path, which is I understood by the Sufis to refer to the inward spiritual path, which is the esoteric complement to the outward exoteric law. So it's a law and a path. That's how the verse begins. شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَجَعَلَكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً. If God had willed, He could have made you one ummah. But He made you as one religious community. But He made you as you are in order to test you by means of what He has given you. So what He has given all of us in our different religions are spiritual paths and legal prescriptions, which are so many tests, which have come from our own inner selves. That's why in other places in the Quran, it says that the Prophet has come, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ. A prophet, a messenger has come from your own souls. So this messenger is nothing but an exteriorization, a personification, a manifestation of your own inmost reality. And that's why you recognize that prophet as speaking the truth, because you recognize, recognize the same truth that you constitute by your very essence, and which is there deep within your heart, but is buried under the rubble of your fallen second nature. So it's a question of rediscovering what and who you are through the religious revelation that is itself an exteriorization for the sake of an interiorization. The religion exteriorizes what you are in order that you interiorize what that religion is. You go back into yourself and you go back into the batin, whence sprang all of these religious revelations. So, the verse continues. لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَجَعَلَكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَلَكِنْ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ فِي مَا أَتَاكُمْ فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. Now we come to what Michael emphasized. So compete with each other in good acts, in good deeds, in good things, in all things that are good. Have a healthy competition. Musabaqa. Have a healthy competition. Compete with each other in goodness. The Dalai Lama gave a wonderful presentation to the monks at Gethsemane in Kentucky. And he began his talk to these monks by saying, look, we're fellow monks. You're in Christianity, we're in Buddhism. And let us compete with each other in our contemplation, in our meditation, in our reflections upon the ultimate reality. He was expressing there exactly what the Quran is saying is the whole purpose for this diversity of religious paths and ways. Compete with each other in acts of goodness, compete with each other in, as it were, mutual stimulation for the one thing necessary. Interiorization, going back, following the path to the heart. And this is the title, Paths to the Heart, is the title of one of the best books on religious dialogue that I've ever read. And that is edited by Professor James C. Cuttsinger. He passed away, sadly, a couple of years ago. And he edited this book. He was University Professor of Religious Studies at the University of South Carolina. And he invited scholars and practitioners from the Orthodox East and from Sufism to come together in South Carolina in 2001, just a month or so after 9/11. And I had the awful experience of having to go from New York down to South Carolina on a domestic flight 1 month after 9/11. And in those days I had a black beard as well as black hair. And as I stepped onto the plane, one of the last passengers to come in transit from London, and there were all these Americans sitting there in their seats, packed plane, I can tell you, it was like walking the gauntlet. The looks, I just had to say, right, look down, don't look into their eyes, just look down. So, but it was well worth it. It was one of the most astonishingly stimulating and uplifting experiences I've ever had in interfaith dialogue back in 2001. So, anyway, back to the verse. فاستبقوا الخيرات إلى ربكم مرجعكم جميعا فينبئكم بما كنتم فيه تختلفون. Unto your Lord is your return. All of you, from all your religious communities, you return to your Lord. And He will inform you about those things regarding which you had differences of opinion. Exactly what Michael was emphasizing. That you will inevitably have differences of opinion this side of the grave. A Muslim will not have the same religious ideas, conceptions, opinions, orientations, flavor, even in the path to the heart. The Sufi, on the way to discovering his or her heart, will have insights into what the Jewish mystic or the Christian mystic is experiencing and realizing, but it will not have the same dhawq. It will not have the same taste. For as long as the individual remains the individual, for as long as that mystic has not attained transcendence, complete union with the divine, in which case there is no individuality to talk about, in which case there is no religion to talk about, there is no subjective experience, no form taken by the rapture anymore, because there is complete and total indissoluble union, where in the Sufi terms it's total fana has been experienced, total extinction of the individual substance. It's gone. The water has returned, the drop has returned to the ocean. There is no difference anymore. And at that point there's no difference of religious orientation. There's nothing except the one. And this is why in another very famous poem of Rumi, some say it wasn't written by him, but it's certainly in his spirit. And the person who did write it could very well put Rumi at the bottom, because it came from the spirit of the master, even if it was written by one or two a person 1 or 2 generations later. And he sings as follows in this poem: چه تدبیر ای مسلمانان که من خود را نمیدانم، نه ترسا نه یهودم من، نه گبرم نه مسلمانم. What do you make of this, O Muslims? چه تدبیر ای مسلمان که من خود را نمیدانم. I don't know myself. I don't know who I am. What do you make of it, my Muslim brothers and sisters? خود را نمیدانم. I don't know myself. نه ترسا نه یهودم من. I am not a Christian and I'm not a Jew. نه گبرم. I'm not a Zoroastrian. و نه مسلمانم, and I'm not a Muslim. نه شرقیم, نه غربیم, نه بریم, نه بحریم, نه azadam, نه... It goes on. It's an amazing, amazing poem, bringing all of the dualities. I am not of the east, nor of the west, nor of the earth, nor of the sky, nor of Adam, nor of Eve. And it goes on until you come to the crescendo. Now, Bishop Anthony is looking up behind me as if there's the verses behind me. Someone putting them up there. No. I thought someone had found it and put it up there. So it builds up to this extraordinary crescendo that Nagabram Namosaman, and then after saying I'm neither the east nor the west nor of the ocean nor of the land nor the sea, he says the verses of the Holy Quran. هو الأول هو الآخر هو الظاهر هو الباطن. He, God, is the out, and this is where we get the polarity that Sarah was referring to, the batin and the zahir, the inwardly hidden and the outwardly apparent. God says in the Quran, Huwa al-awwal, He is the first, He is the last, referring to God. He is the outwardly apparent, He is the inwardly hidden. So Rumi refers to this verse, saying that my true identity goes back to this expression of the ultimate nature of divine reality, which is the beginning of all things, the end of all things, the outwardly apparent of everything, the inwardly hidden of everything. And then he says, I see the one, I call the one, I know the one. That oneness is a deconstruction of all relative levels of identity. And it's only at that level of unitive realization that the lesser levels of identity, whether I'm a man or a woman, or from Iran, or from Arabia, or from this religion, or from that religion, all of it dissolves there in that ultimate realization of transcendent unity. But anything short of that, there will be religious differences. My individuality will kick in. Now it's a question of what do I do with the individuality? Do I have an exoteric, outward, dogmatic, exclusivist relationship with my faith and with the other? Or is it an esoteric, interiorizing, spiritual and integrating relationship vis-a-vis the other? And that's where we're hoping that we're talking about these bridges, these paths to the heart. The path to the heart is from the outward, egocentric identity to the inward, theocentric identity. It's from the ego to the heart. That's the spiritual path that we're all embarking upon. And I think that our dialogue will be richer the more each one of us is attuned to the requirements of that path, from the outward, egocentric aspect of our identity to our inward heart, to our theocentric, centered on that divine spark at the center of our own heart.